Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inlandia Literary Journey. I'm Orlando Ramirez. I'm the editor of La Prensa, and with me is Katie Porter, who is the executive director of the Inlandia Institute here in the Inland Empire. And today we have two special guests. First of all is Nikia Chaney, well-known local poet, professor, mother of five. I don't know how she does it all, but she does. And also today we have Keenan Norris, who is from the area but is currently living in the Bay Area. He's just come out with his first book, Brother and the Dancer, right? Mm-hmm. So your book is set in this area.
Yes, it is. It's set in the Inland Empire, primarily in Highland, California, and in San Bernardino, and takes place. It's kind of coming of age story that's divided up between a young girl who grows up on one side of town. Her name's Erica, and a young brother from the other side of town. His name's Toussaint. They meet at their college orientation, thinking that they're going to, like each other for different reasons, but thinking they're going to like each other because, one, they're from the same small town, and two, because they're two of the only black people at the orientation. And through the course of the day and hanging out with each other, they find that they actually don't like each other at all, and more importantly, don't have much of anything in common, right? Then the story cycles back to when they're 6 years old and tells their stories in alternating chapters to explain how they got to be so different.
Very exciting.
Yeah, and so you didn't have to go through the usual steps when you're publishing a novel with you getting an agent and sending it out to press after press after press. You won the inaugural, or this, was it the second?
The second.
Second,
Yeah.
James D. Houston Award from Heyday,
Right.
with Inlandia's co-publisher. And can you tell us a little bit about the process of getting this book?
Well, I did go through all those traditional steps, just did them unsuccessfully. So I had one agent, who shall go unnamed, who sent my manuscript to about 20 different houses, mostly in New York, and got rejected there. And then I had a second agent who sent it to one house where it was also rejected, and she at that point, I guess, cut her losses. And so after that, I submitted the book to the James D. Houston contest, and it won that contest. Actually, when I got the notification email that I had won the contest, I had forgotten that I had entered the contest, since I've never won a contest for anything in my life, and that was what happened. So.
It's pretty amazing. Well, it just proves you don't need an agent to publish a book, and they're going to be sorry.
So you went to school at UCR. You got your PhD there.
Right. Yes, I did.
And so now you also have an anthology coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's called Street Lit, Representing the Urban Landscape. And one of our contributors is Nikia. Nikia Chaney. The book, among our contributors are also Omar Tyree, a best-selling novelist, David Bradley, a PEN/Faulkner Award winner, and Gerald Early, a National Book Award winner, and many other artists, scholars, activists from across the country, academics from across the country, and also abroad. We had two scholars from Brazil, Jacqueline Lima Santos, who's actually got in touch with her through the through Harvard's hip hop archive, where she was working, and Ana Lucia Silva Souza, who's a professor at the Federal University of Bahia. And so the anthology takes in the broad sweep of street literature. Street lit is kind of a subgenre both of African American literature and of urban literature, American, I suppose also abroad. Street lit in its kind of incarnation as African American literature. Say if you go to a bookstore, not many of those exist anymore, but if you go to a bookstore, what you'll find is in the African American section will be dominated by street lit titles, right? And those books will, those books are, kind of their covers are often gaudy. They really catch your attention, and they have, captured the attention of young readers Black and brown throughout the country. Most of my students, I teach at a community college, most of my students read street lit, right? They're familiar with titles like The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah or Piece of Cake by Cupcake Brown, books like this. But what we wanted to do was bring an academic and scholarly, right, focus to the subgenre, because street lit is typically dealt with in one of two ways: either by its adoring fans, as literature that they would read, or as I don't know, something to kick around by folks who don't, who aren't fans of the literature, who think that it's lowbrow, that it plays into the stereotypes and pathologies of inner city America. And what I wanted to do was to essentially host, through the medium of the book, a more balanced and diverse conversation around street lit.
What is your contribution to the anthology? Is it scholarly or is it poetry?
Well, that's really interesting because it's pretty serendipitous how I got in contact with Keenan, and I found out even about the project. Juan Delgado was my professor at Cal State San Bernardino at the time, and he said, Nikia, you might be interested in this project that Keenan Norris is doing. And I contacted Keenan and asked him, did he want some creative pieces? Did he want some poetry? And he said, that's fine, but he kind of asked me, well, what else do you have? As in, do you have any other scholarly work? And so I told him that I was working on a paper about code meshing and about the diversity with different types of dialects in literature. And I sent him some of the work that I was working on, and he was very interested in what I was doing. Now, I wasn't as familiar with street lit when I ran across this project as Keenan was. But as I started reading some of the titles that he was talking about and doing some research into it, I realized that it's more than just street literature. Urban fiction is more than just the idea of the setting and the place and what's happening in the novel. That there are actually diversity in language within the novel itself. And that's when I became just really, really interested in the way that African American vernacular is portrayed, in the way that these different dialects happen within the passages themselves, as well as the dialogue of the characters. And so that's what I contributed to the project, a scholarly work for that, which is interesting because I am a poet.
When you say code meshing, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the dialects, the way, say, different, say, a street code mixes with say, an academic code? What are we talking about?
Well, code meshing is a really interesting term. And what it is that we think of code switching as moving between sort of the standard English dialect, but then also these sort of dialects that happen among minorities or among people who speak different types of Englishes, like in the Appalachian community, the African American community, or something like that.
It happens quite a lot in Mexican American community.
Exactly. So that's what code switching is moving from this dialect into this sort of standard academic English, in which you pronounce everything correctly, and you use very, very good, very, very good grammar. And so what happens with code meshing is moving away from that paradigm and looking into joining and immersing these different dialects into one dialect, which is authentic to the individual. As a Mexican American, you may speak English with Spanish. You may use Spanish words intermixed with your English statements. As an African American, I may sometimes say, some African American vernacular mixed in with this sort of academic discourse. And it's really interesting when you begin to break down how that happens in a text, and what that does. And I realized that this technique of code meshing, which is fairly new, this idea is fairly new, this technique in street lit can be used for teaching, and it can be used in the classroom to help students navigate those different dialects as they learn grammar, as they learn English, as they learn how to composition, things like that. So I just was really, really interested in the project.
So it's a very useful tool, no matter.
It's a very useful
something that we do all the time, but perhaps we don't even think about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
The books that are classified as street lit, who is their primary audience? Are they young people? Are they people of all ages?
Right. I would say that the primary audience is are young people and adults, maybe up till about 40 or so.
Okay.
But I want to also emphasize that street lit has had various iterations throughout American literary history. So that you think about the 1960s and 70s, you have writers like Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim and Robert Dean Farr and Claude Brown are all would be classified, if they had that term at the time, as street lit writers. Mm-hmm. Chester Himes being another one. And you see that the blaxploitation films of the 1970s, many of them take as their source these texts like Cotton Comes to Harlem, which is a movie starring Ossie Davis, was a book written by Chester Himes. And going even further back into the literature of the American 19th century, the late 19th century, the slum literature, written by white people, by Irish immigrants to the country, written about Italian and Jewish immigrants, books like Stephen Crane's Maggie, a Girl of the Streets, Theodore Dreiser's work, Frank Norris, writers like that, Jacob Riis, How the Other Half Lives. These books also fall into that category of street lit as well.
Would you classify your book as street lit?
No. I'm not a street lit writer, but the reason that I thought bringing this topic to the fore, the street lit topic to the fore, so important is that I see street lit not as some sort of redheaded stepchild or whatever the term is supposed to be for it, but as part of the family of African American literature, part of the family of American literature.
Well, getting young people to read is really difficult.
Exactly.
Finding something that they can identify with, I think we need to do more of that, and I think that's great that you're putting a spotlight on this type of literature.
I see.
And then what I'm very proud of being a part of this project as well, too, is that literature. When we think of literature, I mean, it can be characterized by so many different types of things. And one of the things that I've always been dedicated to is to getting that literature into the community, getting away from just the academic ideas of it, but getting it into the community, finding it in places where, let's get everyone reading, let's get everyone engaged somehow into this type of discourse. So,
Yes.
I'm very happy to be part of the project.
This has been an excellent discussion, and it is just published. It's available on Amazon, iTunes, and all the various formats. It will be officially released in hardback on November 1st, right? And can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be reading?
Sure. So this section comes from one of the sections about the young man who's one of the two main characters in the book, Toussaint. There's also a girl named Erica, and they come from dramatically different lives, even though they live in the same small city of Highland, California. In this section, Toussaint has a febrile seizure, which can be brought on by too much heat exposure. He's a small child at this point, and driving home from the hospital after he's recovered from the from the seizure, he has a vision.
Okay.
Toussaint looked up at the sun above the San Bernardino Mountains. The sun controlled everything. It was God and the devil. It brought seizures and killed children, as well as all the other weak things in the desert. Afternoon now. The sunscape was retreating a little at a time, dying over the mountains, allowing for evening and nightfall. Then the temperature would drop like a shot bird, and the desert would become unpredictable under that darkness. A mixing of summer and winter, everything roasted and dry, but simultaneously stiffening up with the sudden wind and sunless air. Even in absence, the sun was everything. Its absence as powerful as its presence, bringing cold and flu even as it scorched the earth and left the land dead and fallow. Toussaint saw a lizard perched atop a stop sign. It was a gray mannequin, the most still of all living things. Further up the way, he could see prairie dogs moving as fast as his dad's car, between their dug holes and the tree-tall tornadoes of dust, spontaneously born of the pressing heat and hard, low winds. Toussaint wondered what the prairie dogs were running from. He wanted to believe that they were running for the same reasons that people do, the way his great-granddad maybe had done all those many years ago, when the government was coming for him to make him, to take him to the war. Maybe the prairie dogs were full of pride and anger and imagination, just like Major Freeman. Maybe they were trying to outrun the sun, just like the old man had tried to outrun whatever it was he was really running from. Those absolutes stood alongside the sun and the world the sun had made, this desert. So big, the desert stretched with the sun on and on and on, from greater San Diego up to the Los Angeles basin, up to Northern California and burning out to Arizona, Nevada, Utah. The desert went on forever, an infinity of dirt and rock and low scrub and small, hard, defiant life. The desert was so vast, vaster than the pages torn from every school book lane end to end, so vast. Maybe ants living in tract home walls and roadrunners chased from newly driven fence posts, and coyotes exiled to the dry river gulches, and prairie dogs and lizards and woodpeckers and skunks and rattlesnakes and bullfrogs were as prideful and bold as all the black folk with their money right who had come to this hot, raw place. Maybe everything alive in this forever endless desert lived in defiance of it. Survival. Maybe that was the secret of what his life would be. Something about survival.
Thank you for coming. Again, the book is Brother and the Dancer, Keenan Norris, his first novel, set here in the Inland Empire. We're very proud of this. And again, our friend Nikia Chaney, who's also a contributor to our blog and as well as our column. You can find the column every Tuesday in the Press Enterprise. The blog is available at pe.com. Every time, all the time. You can also see other editions of the Inlandia Literary Journeys. And so again, thank you for coming. It's been Katie Porter and myself, Orlando Ramirez, for Inlandia Literary Journeys.